Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Talking Tuesday. Today we have Dr. Noel Casiano as our special guest. He's an adjunct professor at CCSU's Marriage and Family Therapy program and an assistant professor of psychology and human services at the University of Hartford. Dr. Noel Casiano was born and raised in Hartford, Connecticut. He graduated from Hartford Public School System and obtained his bachelor's degree in sociology and criminology justice, or criminal justice, and a master's degree in marriage and family therapy from CCSU. He is also a licensed marriage and family therapist with the state of Connecticut. Dr. Casiano also obtained a doctorate degree in clinical psychology from California Southern University. Dr. Casiano is an assistant professor of psychology and human services at the University of Hartford. He is also an adjunct clinical professor with CCSU's Marriage and Family Therapy graduate program. Dr. Casiano is the author of 3 books, The Fatherhood Crisis, Just a Kid from Park Street, and Momentum, which are all available on Amazon. Dr. Casiano also was featured as a TEDx speaker titled What Happened to You?, which is available on YouTube. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I love those TEDx programs.
Oh yeah, you gotta check it out. We recorded it right here in Central.
We
wow.
actually saw it.
Oh, you
right?
did?
Yeah,
Nice.
when we were working during the summer, we kind of like looking so.
All right. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, and also like the book, Just a Kid from Park Street.
Uh-huh.
Is it the Park Street in Hartford?
Yeah, in Hartford.
Oh,
Mhm.
I lived in Hartford,
Oh.
Hartford for a while
Oh,
when I
okay.
came from Brazil.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Whereabouts in Hartford?
Like, Sherbrooke Avenue? It's like
Uh-huh.
near Princeton.
Near Prince Tech?
Yeah.
Okay, off of Flatbush and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. Cool.
Would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself? Any part of the introduction that we skipped? Or?
Like the background.
Yeah, let me start with my background because I always think it's important for people to know where you come from,
Yes.
what you've been through, right?
Mhm.
So just to think about, sometimes people can look at you and depending on where you come from or your circumstances or your family history or anything like that, they can count you out. Right? So I was born to a teen mom. She was 16 years old. My dad was 17. So imagine being born to teen parents, both of my parents dropping out of high school, right, to take care of me and do that. But at the same time, my dad wasn't he wasn't healthy. He wasn't well. He was struggling with some addictions. So he and my mom, there was a lot of domestic violence in the home. So most of my childhood, not only was I born to teen parents, but most of my childhood was spent living in domestic violence shelters trying to escape from my dad because he was a very dangerous guy, right? And he wasn't well. So those are early challenges on in life, right? So when you think about someone who's born to teen parents, growing up in a shelter, what would their future be like? Right? That's why we can never, ever, ever count anyone out. Because as long as we have, the supports that we need, we could achieve anything we want to achieve. But it doesn't mean that life was easy, right? So growing up in Hartford, like I said, grew up in the Park Street area most of my life. That had its own set of challenges, right? With substance abuse, community and gang violence kind of prevalent in the neighborhood, poverty, right? All those things that can be detrimental to a healthy kind of human developmental process. So here I'm fast forward, right? Kind of now I'm in high school and I'm thinking, I'm in my junior year and I'm like, okay, what do I want to do in my life? All right, I want to go to college. Not many people in my family went to college. So, but I wasn't a great student. Not because I didn't have the ability or the competency, but just because of all the stuff, right, that we live with and some of those challenges makes it difficult to really kind of concentrate on academics when you're thinking about stuff that's going on at home. So I wasn't really, I wasn't a bad student. Hey,
Hi, thanks for coming.
I wasn't a bad student. I was just kind of an average student, like a C student, right? So trying to get into college was not going to be easy. So I remember sitting down with my guidance counselor at high school, and she's like, "You're not college material. You should consider doing something else, like the military or something." Again, nothing against people in the military. It's a great career path if that's what they choose. So I was kind of like, I was like, okay, here I am presented with another challenge. So I had to really consider what options I had, and there weren't many, right? Because again, I wasn't a great student in high school because of all the stuff that I kind of shared with you. But I made a kind of mentorship relationship with my high school principal. And he was the one that says, every day I want you to come to me, check in. I want to make sure you're getting your work done. I'm going to connect you with programs like Career Beginnings. I don't know if anyone heard of Career Beginnings. It's like a college prep program. So I got involved with that. And they're like the mentoring aspect, which I think is so important. Like, no one can do anything alone. It's like, I'm a psychologist now, right? So when I see people in counseling and they say, I don't need anyone, I could do this all by myself. You could, but it's going to be that much more difficult. I think we can achieve our goals when we are connected with people that can help us get to the places we want to get to. So I encourage all of you to do the same thing. Connect with people. You're here, you're getting your education and working on your bachelor's, your master's degree, your doctorate degree, whatever your goals are, but connect with people that can mentor you along the way. Because that's the only way I think that I made it to where I am today. And so again, my high school principal was kind of that first person that helped me kind of get to where I wanted to get to. And I remember this was the first place I came for a college tour. And I absolutely fell in love with CCSU. And my Career Beginnings mentors, because I had two of them, connected me with Mr. C.J. Jones, who at the time was the director of EOP. And the rest is history, right? Got into EOP, worked really hard, and continued to do the best that I could to achieve all of my goals, my academic goals, my professional goals, but it really started here at Central. Right? Understanding that, okay, I've been given an opportunity that I don't want to kind of see wasted. So I'm going to work really hard. So connecting with people on campus, when you talk about Ronnie Fernandez and Serafin Mendez, those are people, Awilda, those were people that were really instrumental as far as my mentorship here on campus. And then I began to see, hey, not only can I get my bachelor's degree, but I can continue to get further in my education. And I stayed here, got my master's degree in marriage and family therapy. That's where I teach as an adjunct right now. And went on and got my doctorate degree because that was another goal that once I finished my MFT here, I was like, I really wanted to, kind of understand how to help people better, not just with, oh, here's counseling, here's medication, but really understand fundamentally how the brain works, what motivates people to do certain things, and understanding the importance of attachment, bonding, and human connection and relationship. So I went on to get my doctorate degree, and I teach full time at University of Hartford, part time here, and then have my private practice where I see people.
And what do you do in your free time?
In my free time,
Do you have any?
I do a lot of running, right? Like I was kind of bummed out because I couldn't run last weekend in the Hartford Marathon because I had an event at my church. It was our 65th anniversary weekend, so we had banquets and workshops. So I couldn't do that, but 2 weeks before that, I ran a half marathon in Colbert.
Oh, wow.
The Hogs back.
So when you say running, you're like serious.
Yeah. I like to run half marathons, full marathons, anything I can get my myself into. But because running, I don't know if you ever ran before, but running is so therapeutic, right? Because it's just you and there's nobody there, and you can think, you can just kind of like process things and get a whole perspective in life that's a little bit different. And you know that those 2-3 hours that I'm running is just kind of my time.
Wow,
So-
hours, 3 hours.
Yeah, because you know, half marathon it can get you like
Marathon
two.
takes I like to
hours.
walk that way. Running, my sister runs.
Yeah.
Right, my sister runs and has since she was in high school, but I don't know, running, I'm always in that, oh, this is awful phase, and, you know, like, I do it for a while, but like, I can pretty much walk for, like, forever. And I really like to walk where, my feet hit something other than pavement,
Yes, trails
you
and
know,
stuff.
yeah. I mean, it really, I find myself working out problems, calming down, and during the pandemic, I live on this kind of small, it's not dead end, but it's a small street, and between classes and every time something upset me, which was pretty much like every 20 minutes in the first month or so, I like walked up outside and it's a half a mile up and down my street, and my neighbors thought I was gonna walk a rut in the middle of the road. But really, it was just like 10 minutes, it's actually 9 minutes up and down the street, and like up, down, yeah, back, sit back down at the computer, back outside. You know, and it's one of the things that made it tolerable. You know, it was difficult.
I used to run in Puerto Rico,
Oh,
but I
yeah?
used to like running with, like, I would invite my neighbors. And then I used to run in Bridgeport at beer season.
Oh, no.
It's
Do you know-
in the park.
I know that you don't run, Martin, but although there are, wheelchair races.
Yes.
Yeah,
I've seen in marathons, I've seen people in wheelchairs. I've seen people that who are blind, and they run with someone. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Like I didn't tell you when we met, right? I did the Google hopping marathon.
Did
Oh,
you?
did?
Cool, no, you didn't tell me.
Yeah, I used to do the half.
All right. Look at you.
So I know what
Hi.
you need,
Oh,
but
hi, are you
Yeah, it's
gonna
about
do
2
run
hours,
chair?
right? How long?
yeah, they give you 3 hours to do it,
Yeah.
but you can, especially when it rains, it's the worst.
Oh, yeah.
Good for you. Awesome.
So, what do you call it? I know that, like, we're talking to Dr. Casiano and everything, but why don't we, like, get lunch and have, like, eat while we're chatting, if that's all right
If
with
it's
you?
okay with you.
Rather than
This
letting
is
everything
just-
get cold down there? Yeah, no, seriously, come on.
But if you have any questions, we could talk.
You're gonna eat afterwards?
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
we could eat afterwards.
all right. Well, I'll put in my place.
Yeah.
I mean, you can if you want
If you want to eat, you could.
Well, I have class.
We're not gonna
I don't-
judge you.
Oh, okay.
So you know when you were talking about like your experience of growing up, so my story is kind of similar to yours because my mom was really young when she got pregnant with my brother and me, and she had to resolve with the same, like she was kind of like running away from my brother's father, and also because she was living poverty, so she left me and my brother, so we kind of had to navigate the foster care system over there. So when we came here, we lived in Hartford for like 5-6 years, and that's the thing. Remember the movie that I made you watch, The Freedom Riders?
Yeah.
You know that movie? Okay.
Great movie.
Because that was the thing that I always talk about in my classes is how can you focus in school when you have so much to deal with? So like my mom had her trauma, so she is someone that is mentally ill, and she had a lot of things to deal with. And my brother got involved into the gang and all that too. So it was like so much. And then I ended up going to a magnet school here in Britain, and I met this teacher that changed my life, my mentor that she's still in my life to this day. She was the one that kind of, for me, I used to get very upset because they used to say, oh, the numbers about like the foster care, like how the kids get pregnant before they are even 18, and how most of the boys ended up in jail before they're 21. And I was like seeing how I was becoming those numbers, you know, and same with my brother. So I was a junior in high school when I met her, and I just remember crying like, I don't know, I would go to college and all that, and she was like, I'm gonna help you. And to this day, she's still in my life. She's still like kind of pushing me to do the best that I can.
Yeah, that's important to maintain those lifelong relationships. You know, my high school principal and I, we're still connected.
Yeah.
He lives in Manchester, and it's funny, he lives right next door to my uncle.
Well,
So, you know, I get a 2-for-1. You know, I go see him and my uncle. We go downstairs, we shoot some pool, right, and then we just hang out. But just to be able to have those connections lifelong. So,
how did you connect with your principal?
because when I was coming out of my guidance counselor's office, when she told me I wasn't college material, he saw me. He was walking the hallway. He was like, you know, that's why I named the TEDx. What happened to you? Like, he looked at me. He said, "What happened to you?" That kind of changed everything after that. And I said, "Well, I just came from my guidance counselor, and I won't say, you know, I won't tell you her name." And she told me that, you know, I have this particular, you know, dream to go to college, and he told me that I wasn't able to get there. That's when he was like, "Well, we're going to work together. I'm going to make sure you get there."
Like I get very like emotional because I feel like if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So every time I think about it, and that's one thing that I'm always talking in my classes, and I always talk to you guys, like so much that we had to carry on. So I like, and then also like there was a time in my life that I became homeless. She didn't know about it, and when she found out, she's like, "Nope, you come home with me." I had like you ruining her house for me.
We all have our own stories, you know that, right? And how important is it to share it with others, so that people can just, it's not only to inspire others, but to let other people know that it is doable. Not easy, but
It's not easy.
but doable.
It's not easy.
So share your stories. Never like, you know, that's one thing, you know, when I was one time talking to my sister was kind of stuck in that, like, should I do that? Should I share my story? So always share your story. It helps other people. So share yours.
What about in college? Did you encounter challenges along the way once you were here?
Yeah, well, one of the biggest challenges was financial, right? Financial challenges. And I remember that I had to work 2 jobs at Breakers and at Champs in the mall, just to kind of make ends meet. And I remember that, you know, again, I come from a very poor family, but my grandparents, they used to sell libas. I don't know if you know what libas are, right?
Yeah.
Those little ices and stuff, and they sell in the neighborhood for $0.25. So my grandmother used to sell those, and then all the money that she would make, she would give me, so that I can buy my books. So family was very instrumental, but financial challenges was one of the biggest ones that I faced. Then coming on campus in 1993, right? Not many of us were here.
Mm-hmm.
So finding, you know, connecting with Lasso was so important. You know, me and 2 other of my friends started Latin Theta Phi, the first Latin fraternity in the country. We started a chapter here. We still have one. So from there, we started to build kind of our social networks. So Lasso, Lambda Theta Phi, then Lambda Theta Alpha, the Latino sorority came on campus, and we started to build a community right here on campus, which is important because being away from home, and I say being away, like Hartford is like, what, 10 minutes, right? But it was like, this is the first time I was away from my home environment. And it was a whole different world and 10 minutes away.
I know.
So I say that because I think it's important, you know, even at University of Hartford, I was talking to students. There, because of COVID, there was a no visiting policy, right? You couldn't bring visitors on campus, but now that that's starting to lift, you know, how many of you are inviting your siblings, your family members on the campus? Because for me, I've never been on a college campus before until my first kind of tour that I did with Career Beginnings. So being able to expose this environment to your family, your friends, and your people, you know, friends in the neighborhood and stuff like that is so important because sometimes if you don't see that, you don't kind of see yourself there. That was one of the things that I remember pulling up in the student center parking lot with my career beginnings mentor. When I walking around campus, at that time, it was the street that went right down.
Right down the middle of campus. I wasn't here then, but I heard about it.
Yeah, there was a street that went right in front of the student center in Welty. And I stood there and I'm looking around and I saw myself here. That was also kind of a big motivation for me to be like, I can see myself here, doing, kind of achieving some, or working towards some of my goals. So helping some of your friends and your family members, just by inviting them, hey, come visit me, right? And just give them a tour, your own tour, your unofficial central tour, so that they can see themselves also like, hey, college is an option.
Also, like in your bio, you mentioned that you did criminal justice and psychology. So that was my first thought when I got here. That's what I want to do because I want to do to work in the juvenile system with the trouble kids, the troublemakers, because that was how I was labeled before and how my brother was labeled. But then I kind of like, right now I'm still like undecided. I don't know if I want to do it or not. So like, why did you choose to do like criminal justice?
So I chose sociology and criminal justice because I wanted to work at the Department of Children and Families. So when I graduated, I went to work for DCF for 16 years. I spent 16 years at DCF. And talk about, seeing, some really challenging things, right? And working with families. Again, families struggle for many different reasons. No one wakes up one day and says, I want to be an addict, right? Nobody wakes up. So people struggle for many different reasons. So I learned along the way that it's not my role or my job to judge anyone. Because any of us can be in those situations, right? Depending on how well we manage things or how hard it is to kind of struggle through it. So I went into every single family's home that I worked with that mentality, to make sure that I can help families stay together, number one, right? Because even though I was at DCF for 16 years, I can count on both hands how many children I had to remove, because I didn't really like doing that, because I understood families belong together, right? There are challenges, and we work through those challenges. If a family is struggling with substance abuse, let's get you treatment. If you're struggling with mental health, let's get you in treatment. If there's issues around housing or poverty, let's do that. There are legal issues, let's work through that, right? So I was kind of just inspired because, and then to work at DCF in Hartford, out of the 16 years, I worked 14 years there. I did 2 years in Manchester because I got promoted and I went over there as a supervisor, but then I came right back to Hartford. So that's what kind of inspired me. Okay, this is what I want to do. This is how I'm going to get there, and just kind of build that roadmap. So think about for yourself, what do you want to do with your life? Like, how do you, we all have some type of purpose, right? And we want to live our purpose. Because if you can live your purpose no matter what you do, it doesn't feel like it's a job.
Doesn't feel like work.
No, it doesn't feel like work at all. Every day I get up, I feel inspired to go do what I'm doing because I absolutely love it. So you should be able to, and my mom was like, you should get, you should become a lawyer, right? And
That's what I say.
Yeah, you should become a lawyer. And this is for me, right? I was like, all right, I heard that my whole childhood, be a lawyer, be a lawyer, be a lawyer. But then when I got here, I understood, no, I don't want to be a lawyer. I want to work with families and children and stuff like that. So follow your passion. Right? I know people might say, hey, you might be good at this, but as long as you know that you're following your passion and your purpose, you're going to be fine. You're going to enjoy exactly what you're doing.
And even, I feel like, even if it's not a major that has an obvious career track, if you really love it and you devote a lot of energy and passion to it, you're going to find a way to use that somewhere, somehow, right?
Any other questions?
I wanted to ask, can you talk about like the hardest situation you had in the DCF office and like how you dealt with it?
Wow. So, let's see. There were many. The hardest situation that I probably faced, and again, I gotta be careful with confidentiality, right? You know what that is?
Mhm.
So there was a particular family that, I think that was my first removal. That's why I remember it. And again, I tell you, I didn't remove many kids, right? Count them in both of my hands because I was really committed to trying to do the best I could. But this situation was really, really difficult for this family. And it was, we had, we had to think about the safety of the children. So I went in to let this mom know, hey, we tried this. The mom didn't want to work with us. We referred her for counseling. She didn't want to go. We referred her for substance abuse. She kept, using, and it was just an unsafe environment for the children, the 3 children that were there. So go, we have a policy at DCF when you go remove children, you have to go with the police. Right? So I show up with the police, what she's expecting, right? So getting ready, I said, look, I know we've worked hard to try to get you to a place so that we wouldn't have to be here today, but unfortunately we are. So she was like, all right, she played it cool. I said, so if you can help me with some bags so we can pack the stuff for the kids, it doesn't have to be a more traumatic situation than it has to be. So she gives me the bags and I'm, kind of taking clothes from a drawer, putting it, and I hear this big boom behind me. When I look back, the police had tackled the mom to the ground because she was going to hit me with a hammer over my head.
Oh my God.
Right? So I learned a lesson. Like when I do stuff like that, I got to keep my eyes kind of. But it was.
Which explains the 2 or 3 hours of running.
Exactly. Learn how to run a lot. So.
Not running away. I mean, no, but this is one of the things we do to kind of
process
bad stuff that's going, or it not even necessarily bad, right?
Yeah. So mother gets, now the children are all crying, right? Because the mother's kind of being handcuffed, and it's a very difficult situation. And I remember, she was like, I'm gonna kill you, right? All the things that they do. That mom worked really hard to get herself clean, get herself into counseling, do really good work. At the end of that case, that mom thanked me, right? So something that could have been really tragic, right? I could have probably been to her getting all the treatment that she needed and deserved, and then all her 3 kids returning back home. It was just, kind of the perfect kind of way that I envisioned that when you're committed to a family, you do the best you can, no matter what, right? Because I could have, some people, before me, she had like 13 social workers, and they were all like, she's hard. You're not going to be able to do any good work with her because this family is like a lost case. And I was like, no, nobody's lost case. So I went in with a different mentality. It wasn't an easy beginning, but the ending was good. And there are a lot of cases like that where they're challenging beginnings, but you stay committed, to that family, and you work with them, you work really hard. There's good results.
So I have a question. So you've been kind of on both sides of the desk in the classroom now, and you're also you're a professional social worker. One of the things we know is that children and young people who grow up in those environments, or we have a lot of refugees on campus who have been through some really traumatic, either they or their families have been through some really traumatic experiences. How, as faculty members, right, or do we help those students in our classrooms when we don't necessarily know all the backstory, but you can tell that people are, I think elementary and high school teachers probably have this more than college professors, but when students are coming to class, not necessarily housing or food insecure, but from traumatic experiences at home. You
Yeah.
know,
I think we all have to be, the buzzword now is trauma informed. Right? We all have to be trauma informed and understand that everyone has a story and everyone may have certain challenges that can interfere with the way they function in not just in life, but in an academic setting, right? And we know, right, we start to think about neuroscience. When someone is struggling with trauma or a history of trauma, they're stuck, right? You think about the brain in this kind of format. This is the spinal cord, this is the brain stem, midbrain, limbic, and the cortex. And the cortex is what? Our smart part of the brain, our thinking part of our brain, our executive functioning part of our brain. But when you think about somebody that's struggling with trauma, their brain is stuck here in their brain stem, in their survival brain, their reptilian brain. So someone that is stuck here because of trauma, untreated trauma, can they have access, complete access to their cortex, which is their executive functioning part of their brain? There are going to be challenges, right? It's only until we can help people kind of unburden and heal from those traumatic experiences that then they, and this part of the brain, the limbic, is our relational part of our brain, right? So when we are hanging out with friends or, something with our family, we use our relational part of our brain. Someone that's stuck in this fight, flight, or freeze response because they're in their brain stem, their survival brain, they're going to struggle with relationships, they're going to struggle academically, with making good judgments. So, just yesterday in class, I had a student come up, after class, and she was telling me some of her challenges, and I knew from that point on, right, that she needed some support. So I got her connected with someone that can support her, because that's going to be instrumental in her academic success when she has that ability to kind of unblend and unburden and heal from some of those personal traumatic experiences that she's going through right now. So as faculty, as staff, right, we have to, take the time to get to know our students. And I know in our counseling program, we don't have more than 25 in our class. Some classes might be larger than that.
I have some that are larger, some that are smaller, but I've got 80 altogether, plus this crowd.
Yeah.
Which is, for me, they're fun.
Yeah.
I mean, you all are fun, believe me, because I don't have to give you grades. No, and there's no exam.
No exam, no stress.
Well, I wouldn't say there's no stress, but there's no exam.
Yeah.
But Amina is in two of my classes right now, and Adi has been in one. And, Millie was in the first class I ever taught at CCSU.
Really?
Yeah, in 2003, fall of 2003.
So spending time, right? Getting to know our students, following up with email. I do a lot of that. Sometimes I teach an urban trauma class, right?
Oh, wow, yeah.
And there are a couple students in there that I was, that I'm worried about. And I'll email them. Hey, I saw that, you kind of, do you need to talk? And we set up office hours and they come in, we talk. So it's just taking a personal interest in them. Academics is, of course, something that is really important, but taking a personal interest in how they're doing, how they're managing the transition, right? I had a student in one of my urban trauma class had 11 family members die of COVID. And now she's sitting in my class. So making
Because
sure.
grief is a very powerful.
And grief and loss last a lifetime. Okay? Because I don't know if you saw it in TEDx, I talk about how I lost my brother when I was 6 years old. I'm not going to tell you how old I am now, but that's still something that's really hard for me. Every June 6th, that's when he was born. September 13th, when he passed, are hard days, right? And am I doing much better, right? I don't want you to have pity for me. I'm doing much better, but it's always something that I think about. The way that I lost him was very traumatic, so I could just close my eyes and see the scenario right there. So understanding that loss, it's a lifetime kind of thing that you live with. You manage and you cope and you get better as time goes by, but you can never, ever, ever forget those experiences, right? We have 100 billion neurons in our brain, and they record every positive and negative experience that we have.
And sometimes they come popping up when least you
When
expect
you
it.
least expect it. Yep.
So the situation you were describing, where you're like, so how are you finally able to connect with the mom, or just like in general, like, with people from like different backgrounds or different experiences? Give any advice to like how to like fully connect and like understand like what they're going through?
To fully connect, we have to listen, right? And I remember after that incident where she wanted to kill me, I had to go back and meet with her, right? And I said, look, I understand, right? You're upset that you don't have your kids, but I want to make a promise to you right now. If we can work together, I promise you will get your kids back as soon as it's safe enough for them to return. But you have some things to work on. And then I said, but before that, tell me a little bit about it. She started to tell me. She was abused as a child, molested, sexually abused, right? So now I start to hear her story, and I'm starting to understand. Again, there's not that I'm condoning some of the things that she's done or is doing, or how she's putting her kids at risk. I'm not condoning that, but I'm trying to understand, right? And I don't think no one, her 18 social workers before me, probably took the time to understand and to listen. And I took that approach, and she did really good work. And in about a year and a couple of months, she was all set, and her kids came back. So she, so to build connections, we have to listen. We have to withhold any judgments, right? Because people have their own stories. They've been through their own kind of struggles in life, and we can't judge it. We can't say, oh, and I have this kind of ingrained philosophy, right? I don't, people are the result or the consequence of like early experiences in life. So if you have a pretty tough start in life, you're going to see the consequences of that, right? So can those things be changed? Absolutely, they can be changed, but it takes a lot of work. So it has to be from a place of I want to listen. I'm genuinely interested in who you are and what's going on, and what happened to you, and all these things, and then coming from a place of not judging. And that's hard because we judge. We walk into a room, and the first thing we do is we start judging. Oh, this person is too tall. This person is this person is that, right? So part of human nature is for us to judge and compare ourselves to others. That's a challenge that we all have to overcome. So you want to be successful in whatever you do, an engineer, whatever you want to do, a lawyer, a social worker, whatever. You have to understand that you have to listen and judge. How I live my life, I don't know.
So to help that mother, did you put her through a drug rehab and also something for her issues
Yeah.
growing up?
So she went through substance abuse treatment, and she did mental health treatment as well. And then, there were some issues. I helped her move from where she was living because it wasn't a good place. I helped her move. Got her connected with like a in-home, it was called in-home preservation worker. So it was a social worker that goes to the home and just works with that particular mom or family to ensure that things are, the progress that they're making, they sustain those progresses. So she did all that work, and she did all the work, right? All I did was just watch her work and say, what do you need? Oh, you need this? Okay, let's get it to you. But she did all the work, so she gets all the credit. She was successful. And there's many like that I've seen in my 16 years that I was at DCF.
But it's difficult. I think back to when I was in high school, right? And I grew up on a street where there were only two families that anybody had finished college, right? Everybody else, they were factory workers, some were retired, whatever. And my three best friends, of the five friends that I really had in high school, three of us went to college and, no, two of us went to college and three didn't. And there was nothing different really about the sort of intellectual capacity or smartness. I can remember sitting in the kitchen with my mother, my friend Lalani, whose mother was Japanese from Okinawa, and her father, because I grew up right near Fort Devens, okay? And her father was a retired GI, yeah, and the home was violent. She was really smart, very, very funny, but she'd go home and she'd come to our house and my mother would be like, you should think about going to college. You know, Lowell was $300 a year, I think, at that time. Okay? I mean, which was more money then than it is now, but her and this other friend who lives at Lori Mark, Lonnie's father would be like, you're too stupid to go to college. I mean, she came home to, you're too stupid to go to college. That's what she dealt with at home. So how are you supposed to, doesn't matter really. Yeah, so she wound up working, and in fact, she's dead of cancer now, but she wound up working in a factory in town, right? Lauren Ma's father was in the military, just kept saying, we have no money to send you to college. We have no money to send you to college. So she got this really good job at one of the Air Force bases in Massachusetts. But I'm like, Lowell was $300 a year. And whether it was that they didn't know, right, or the parents were just like, you're not doing that, and this was the way they explained it, right, was just like, it was really sad.
So imagine how powerful words can be.
Yeah.
Right? And it was one of my classes that, yesterday I was talking about the same thing, how words can really impact someone's self-worth, self-esteem. So we have to be careful even how we use our language and communication and how we express ourselves with others. Even if we're frustrated, we have to be careful that we don't belittle, that we don't put down, that we don't take away from somebody's self-worth or self-esteem, because those things can have lifelong effects.
So I guess I might have one last question, so I'm sorry if I was late, but I had to do a couple things when I got out of class. But one of the things that students and early professionals really, and not even so early professionals, have trouble with, right? It's kind of work-life balance, and I wonder, especially given your field and all that you do, I mean, how do you work at that, or how do you help people understand how to do that?
It's having a list of what is priority. Right? So I grew up without a father, right? Kind of shared that. And I remember being a great athlete, a good athlete, and playing football and baseball. I was the captain of the baseball team in high school, and looking in the stand, and nobody was there, right? Cheering me on that I knew. There were my friends and people from school, but family. So I wanted to ensure that family for me was going to be my priority in life. So even though I worked, and my son played, he's actually graduating from Eastern in December, but he played college basketball at Eastern.
Oh, I think I heard of it.
Yeah. So, and so from a young age, right, he started playing basketball like in third grade. Scored 2,000 points in high school, right, and all state, all that. So he, never missed a game. Why? Because my priority was family. So I would have to rearrange work and do whatever I had to do to make sure that I never missed a game for him, never missed an open house for him. Every year would meet his teachers, any school event, any award that he got, I was there, right? Because I saw how, I didn't get a lot of awards in school, right? But, seeing that, that was so important, that I wanted to make sure that he had that opportunity, right? So family, so prioritizing family, and then of course work and all that stuff and education, but making sure you have a list of what are your priorities and what are the things you're willing to sacrifice. So am I willing to sacrifice hanging out with friends so I can go see my son play basketball? That was a no-brainer for me, right? But you have to make certain priorities in your life and then commit yourself to them. And then you're going to reap the rewards of that, right? Because for him, my son is graduating in December. He was a semester behind because of COVID. But he's doing his internship right now on adult probation. He's a criminal justice major. And so then he's already applying for his MSW programs. So, it's all, family was important to me because I saw how family for me was a little different, right? I wanted to make sure that I kind of had a healthy family for myself and for my son, Nick.
And that's how you turn that around.
Yeah.
Stop that cycle from happening.
Yeah. My wife and I just celebrated in August our 25th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
It was amazing that she stuck by me with all this stuff going on. Right?
Is
Well,
that
it's not
still-
easy when people are going back to school. No. I
And
mean,
she's an amazing woman herself. She should be in this chair.
well, we'll have, no. Yeah, Isabelle.
What's her name? Her
Yeah,
info.
because my wife just sent me, she works at Child Health Development Institute. She graduated here with her psychology degree as well. And she runs 2 programs in the state. One is emergency mobile psychiatric services. So when you call 211 or 988 now, she does all the training and quality improvement for the 13 mobile sites, centers across the state. She manages all that. And then
So this is only our second
Yeah.
semester doing this, and from what Isabelle tells me, we already have people signing up for, like, hey, when can I come?
yeah.
Because it's we've had some really interesting people come in and tell their stories.
So she's pretty amazing too. So she inspires me, right? So she has a master's degree and everything. She's another kind of industry leader in the mental health field in Connecticut. So I'm proud of her.
What's her name?
Noel Casiano. She works for CHDI, Child Health and Development Institute. Right here in Farmington, right across the street from the UConn Health Center.
Oh, okay.
They're right on top of the UConn School of Public Health.
I drive past it
You
all the
drive past it
time,
all the
but
time.
it's like, I'm always late on the way to the doctor or something, so, or, trying to find my way here. But we're so glad that you came.
Thank you for having me. Any questions? Anything you guys want to ask? Or
Can you come to our open house on Friday night?
Friday
Bring the
night?
family,
What time? I was
5 to 7.
telling Millie that I'm doing another event for the State of Connecticut Public Defender's Office.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell us about your Fatherhood Crisis book?
Yeah.
The basis.
So that event on Friday, the Public Defender's Office has been reading my book, The Fatherhood Crisis, for the last month. It was part of their book club. So part of their book club, they chose that book, but now because of Hispanic Heritage Month, they're going to have me come and kind of talk about it. But The Fatherhood Crisis, that book I wrote that book, right, kind of a personal kind of interest in it, understanding the impacts of growing up without your dad and how it has impacts emotionally, academically, socially, and even legally, right? A lot of kids, that's one of the spins of on Friday when I'm talking to public defenders' offices. There are a lot of people that are incarcerated. I don't know how many, the percentage of people that are incarcerated grew up without their fathers.
95?
89.
Wow.
89% of people that are incarcerated grew up without a father in the home. That's pretty sad, right? So there is this, and I'm glad, President Obama kind of highlighted, the importance of fatherhood, because fatherhood is essential to, children's well-being. If parents split up, parents divorce, you don't divorce your kids, right? So.
But they're impacted,
They're impacted.
especially if there's a lot of tension between the parents.
Yeah.
Which
A
is
lot of
sort of
times-
difficult to avoid.
In that kind of divorce or separation process, the children are mostly affected. You know why? They blame themselves. If I would have cleaned my room, if I would have listened, right? And kids really kind of put all that blame of their parental separation issues at home on themselves, which is pretty sad. But that has a lot of different kind of negative
Or if I do
consequences.
this, that, or the other thing, my parents will get back together,
Yeah.
right? If I fight with the stepmom or stepdad, then if I fight with if I like the stepdad or the stepmom, it means I'm being disloyal. You can probably hear a fair amount of therapy in that discussion there, right? I'm disloyal to my mom or my dad.
They struggle with loyalty, splitting issues, and stuff like that. So that's where I'll be on Friday with all the public defenders from the state of Connecticut.
Well, next year we'll try to schedule better.
better. That's okay.
No, but we're hoping, I mean, we're in a new space, right? It's a bigger space. We can really show like some academics. So if you've got books that you want to donate to us,
I will.
right? I hit Representative and Mrs. Vargas up yesterday for books, right? Because this isn't the whole library collection, but to me, if we're gonna change the state of Connecticut, we're gonna change that. I never learned that in high school or college right? We're gonna change that and support students at the same time. Yeah. So we're really, really glad that you could come.
Thanks for having
So now can we have lunch?
me. Hay hambre, hay hambre.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
Thank you. So, Millie just came to my mailbox in the history department because we can only have one affiliation.
Yay.
You know what it is, it's the pins for everyone.
Yay.
So we have,
Oh, really?
we have, little, who's got one on?
Nobody has one.
Where
Yay.
today, but